This episode contains a lot of technobabble, but it's New York City Tandem Network technobabble, which frankly is my favorite kind. Nonetheless, it would be good to be familiar with a lot of the other programs in the New York City Narrated Programs playlist, especially the Bronx programs, but also the programs on the sector tandems, which initially were called New York City Routings, programs A through D. At some point, I'm going to rename those. Anyway, here's today's episode, Network, Technobabble, and all. While working on part 3 of this series, I listened carefully to a tape Ben recorded, and it confirms something that I said in part 2. I had said that Staten Island would have a particular problem with the absence of Gotham Tandem because Gotham is the first choice for their crossbar 5s to reach Lower Manhattan. The calls would be rerouted to Staten Island Tandem, which had limited circuits to Manhattan offices. And guess what?
21239. I'm sorry, all circuits are busy due to the recent fire in New York City. Will you try your call again later, please? This is a recording. 21239.
All circuits are busy due to the fire. Try your call again later. Why would they say that? Well, it's not because the customer is calling one of the dead codes. It's because the customer is calling something in the Gotham sector, and Staten Island Tandem is getting overwhelmed with Gotham sector calls. In the tapes, there are no other recordings that say, all circuits are busy due to the fire, please try later. Just Staten Island Tandem. Now here's the Network Management Bureau recording for March 3rd.
March 3rd, 7:45 a.m. Please make one attempt only to the 212 area. I repeat, please make one attempt only to the 212 area. If you have any questions, please call 212-370-3636. This is the New York Telephone Company Network Management Bureau, 240 East 38th Street, New York, New York. Thank you for calling.
5 days after the fire, and they are telling operators to make one attempt only to New York City, just in general. That's in addition to the instruction to not even try the 12 dead codes at 2nd Avenue. So why are they doing this? Why are they telling operators try New York City numbers only once? It's because they know that for the foreseeable future, busy circuits are going to be encountered on calls to New York, and no special handling will help. All the customer can do is try again. So they tell the operators to just try it once, and then say something like,
Will you try your call again later?
If we're having trouble getting through to that area due to the fire in Manhattan.
the reason operators are getting busy circuits calling New York City 5 days after the fire is that there are certain tandems that are missing, and the rest of the network has to take up the slack, and it's not prepared to handle it fully. The missing tandems are...
Gotham Tandem 89.
21213.
Right. Just as an example, operators at my Lynbrook cordboard, who won't be there much longer, by the way, but it's still in now, use Hempstead tandems 1 and 2,
5167, 5166.
the local tandems, for calls to New York City. Well, Hempstead tandems 1 and 2 normally send the Gotham sector to Gotham,
21213.
which it can't do. And so you're going to get recordings.
I'm sorry, all circuits are busy now.
There's a place where the tandem profile says that Hempstead tandems 1 and 2 also have trunks to Borough Tandem.
212, no.
That's a pair of New York telephone tandems that are used for incoming long-distance calls from upstate New York, Suffolk County, and New Jersey. I'd guess Hempstead has it for emergency use, and so they might be sending the Gotham sector to Borough, but that would be just adding to its normal traffic. So sooner or later you're going to get a recording saying all circuits are busy now.
21229.
There are very few indications on the tapes as to exactly how the absence of Gotham Tandem was being coped with, but one clear example has shown up in a relatively unlikely place.
377 Panel Exchange, Brooklyn.
Now there's a reason that it's unlikely the absence of Gotham Tandem would be felt from a Brooklyn panel, and that is that until 1974 it was impossible for Gotham Tandem to make any difference to calls going out from Brooklyn panels because there was no connection. It all goes back to the beginnings of Gotham Tandem, which, at its very birth, was always able to receive MF. In fact, that's the only way to talk to it, MF. But of course it can't MF out, and that makes Gotham unique. There is no other tandem that can complete to the entire city and not MF, except of course Suburban Tandem, which, oh dear.
On the first and second floors, all equipment was destroyed.
Right. Brooklyn Panels, on the other hand, did not use MF to call Manhattan until last year, 1974. Suburban Tandem, the panel sender tandem in 2nd Avenue, used to be the default route for Brooklyn Panels, but they replaced it sometime last year. Now, the default route is a crossbar tandem to which this panel, say it isn't so, sends MF. That's almost undignified for a panel to do in the New York City network because the network was built with no need for it. But they had to cut out Suburban, so now, well, here is Ben forcing the new default tandem to give him a recording. From Brooklyn's Esplanade 7 panel in the Kenmore Place building, Ben has just dialed a 7-digit number that goes to the new default tandem, and he digit squeezed an extra 3 digits in there. That caused either the panel or the tandem to make the trunk reset. It's now waiting for MF digits, which won't happen. So we'll get to hear which tandem this is in a minute.
I'm sorry, your call did not go through. Will you please hang up and try again? This is a recording. 21232. I'm sorry, your call did not go through. Will you please hang up and try again? This is a recording. 21232.
King's Tandem. We are in the Brooklyn sector here, and so the outgoing sector tandem is King's. So now King's has to do all the things Suburban used to do, and some of them just come easier. For example, the Centrex CU codes served by Tremont Tandem in the Bronx
21226
can now be reached more directly because King's is able to MF to Tremont. Suburban had to go through Pulse Conversion Tandem to get to Tremont. Here's a call to a Tremont Centrex where Ben dials extra digits, and this time they get sent along and even dial pulsed out to the Centrex.
Now that's what I call extra digits.
Now that King's Tandem has become the default route for panels in the Brooklyn and Kings sectors, and the final route for crossbar 1s in the Brooklyn and Kings sectors, it gets a lot of traffic going out from Brooklyn. It has direct trunks to almost every entity in New York City. In fact, I just went through a 5-hour-long, now 6-hour-long set of tapes of this very panel, trying to find a good example where King's Tandem did not have direct trunks. And you know, I only found one. That's how well trunked it is. But unlike Suburban Tandem, which had full groups to every regular entity in the city, King's has a high usage group to probably everyone, which overflows, when busy, to the sector tandem for that particular place. Here, from the 1977 recording of this panel, made from a coin phone, is a call to LH5, a number 1 crossbar in the Astoria CO. This panel MFs it to King's Tandem, you don't hear that. Then King's MFs 7 digits to Bushwick, which you do hear. And then there's a pause while Bushwick is MFing to Astoria. We can tell from all the noise on that sender that that was recorded during the daytime. King's Tandem probably does have direct trunks to LH5, which Ben just happened to catch busy. The thing is, this panel does have trunks to Bushwick Tandem now, and so it could have used Bushwick. Having trunks to Bushwick is new, and I think they just forgot to add LH5 to the things that are sent there. Here is Ben proving that this panel does have direct trunks to Bushwick by dialing extra digits on one of the codes this panel does send there.
I'm sorry, your call did not go through. Will you please hang up and try again? This is a recording. 21331. I'm sorry.
Now I should mention here that there is only a tiny handful of office codes in Manhattan that go through the default route. Most of Manhattan goes through tandems that handle it very well, York and Amsterdam, which I'll tell you more about later. But one of the exceptions, for whatever reason, is Oxford 5, a crossbar 1 in West 36th Street. This panel sends it to King's Tandem every time. It used to go to Suburban, and sometimes King's Tandem runs out of direct trunks. When it does, it uses Chelsea Tandem.
01242.
Here, the Esplanade 7 panel MFs to King's, we don't hear that. Then King's MFs to Chelsea, which we do hear. Then there's a pause while Chelsea is revertive pulsing with Oxford 5. Now, the thing about the sector tandem layer of the network is that, with the exception of Gotham, all you ever get once you're in a sector tandem is a direct trunk to the office, a Centrex tandem, or another sector tandem. That's all they do. And the first time I heard an exception was earlier in this series when I said,
51610.
What a phenomenal routing.
Sorry.
right, because I'd never heard that before. So when a sector tandem uses a tandem from another layer of the network, that's unusual. Now, Digby 4, a crossbar 1 in the Broad Street building, is one of those exception codes that used to go to Suburban and now goes to King's. And King's does have direct trunks to Digby 4. Here in 1977 is a call going through from this panel when King's did have a direct trunk available. And now, from the 1975 fire outage period, here's this same panel calling Digby 4 at a time when King's did not have a direct trunk available. Now, until the fire, all we've ever heard King's do is use Gotham Tandem for this part of Manhattan. But it can't, so what's it gonna do? Let's find out. Busted. Gotcha. I just caught King's Tandem using a non-sector tandem to get to Manhattan. Unheard of, except during the fire period. And this is an ESS tandem, probably Williamsburg.
21250.
To review that call, starting with the last digits, our panel MFs to Kings, which MFs to the ESS, which probably MFs to Digby 4. Kings is definitely using an ESS here. It is probably Williamsburg. I say probably because New York Tel has been known to press into service their regular number 1 ESSs as temporary tandems. So it's probably Williamsburg, but we can't be sure. It might be some other ESS. Now, before we leave Esplanade 7, here is a vacant code dialed during the fire outage period. This goes to Richmond Hill, the tandem that was giving recordings that say L11 and 21237 to vacant code dialers all over Brooklyn and Queens in 1970. But you know what it's saying now.
You have dialed cannot be completed due to telephone equipment damage. For further information, call 999-6565. En español, marque 999-6262. You have dialed cannot be completed
This is
due to
Richmond Hill.
telephone equipment damage. For further information, call...
While Ben's in Brooklyn, he wants to make another stop at this place.
438.
438. That's Gedney 8. Formerly panel, recently converted to ESS, along with Gedney 5 and Gedney 6. These are the Gedneys, the ones in 14th Street, that Bill Acker had in mind when he named this ring Gedney Ring. He didn't mean Gedney 9 in 77th Street, which we've heard some tapes of. He meant Gedney 5, 6, and 8 in 14th Street. Before I put on the ESS that replaced the Gedney panel, let's play a call to Gedney 6 while it still was panel. This call is made from the Riverside 9/850 number 1 crossbar in West 108th Street, Manhattan. It goes through Suburban Tandem, and it was made at night, so this is an unusually clear tape of Suburban Tandem pulsing to the Gedney 6 panel. Rest in peace, 14th Street Gedney panels, and so long Suburban Tandem. All right, let's let Ben continue his intercept survey from the brand new 438 ESS in 14th Street.
I am sorry, we cannot complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. I am sorry.
Well, he dialed a vacant code and he got a vacant code recording. That's a good sign. Now, here's one of the 2nd Avenue fire codes.
Sorry, the number you have dialed cannot be completed due to telephone equipment damage. For further information, call 999-6565. En español, marque 999-6262. Sorry.
At last, we see an ESS doing it the way I expected them all to do it, which is to use the many recording machines they have to make a separate fire recording and leave the vacant code recording the heck alone. Am I starting to sound like an internet meme?
Leave her alone!
Okay, so the last ESS stop was the 490 ESS, which Ben said,
This is a weird office.
yes, and he's right, because when he got the partial dial recording, it repeated over and over. What it is supposed to do, and does in most ESSs, is what it does here. Plays once, then there's a long silence, and then it goes to the receiver off hook routine. Thanks to the software running the switch, you can get the partial dial recording by dialing your own number.
I am sorry, we cannot complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording.
This is a recording. Please hang up. There appears to be a receiver off the hook. Please check your main telephone and extension. Then try your call again.
It's always a sad thing to lose a panel, especially one that had unique tones like this one. But this time, there was a silver lining. Before 1975 and this particular ESS, Ben and I had never heard the following.
The call you have made requires a 10-cent deposit. Please hang up, wait for dial tone, deposit 10 cents, and dial your call again. In an emergency, dial 0, no coin required. The call you have made requires a 10-cent deposit. Please hang up, wait for dial tone, deposit 10 cents, and dial your call again. In an emergency, dial 0, no coin required. The call you have made requires a 10-cent deposit. Four, 3, 8, 9, 6, 9, 6.
During that first week of March, some very good news came. First, the #1 crossbar offices have to be cleaned up, but they will work again, all of them in 2nd Avenue. They're going to clean up and rehabilitate the crossbar ones. Meanwhile, the 4 office codes that were served by the totally destroyed panels are going to be imported from nearby central offices. 3 codes will be handled by an already existing ESS in West 42nd Street, and the 4th code will come out of an already existing ESS in West 18th Street. Customers served by the imported ESS lines will continue to be served by imported lines until a new #1 ESS is installed in the 2nd Avenue building. But there is no hurry for that. And the good news is, they're aiming to turn everybody's phone line back on by the end of Sunday, March 16th. You know, they were using the word miracle in their PR, and frankly, they had every right to. What they are doing in a period of less than 3 weeks is nothing short of amazing. And here's another piece of good news for both us and the network engineers. Gotham Tandem is also going to be coming back. Gotham Tandem truly is unique. It was the first crossbar tandem in the city to receive MF, and as such it was used by operators when it first came in 1948. It continues to be unable to MF out, But thanks to this old network, Gotham is able to complete to almost the entire city without using MF. How does Gotham do that? I want to show you this now because it sets up some things I have to explain later on. So let me fast forward to show you what Gotham is going to do, which, for the most part, is what it did before. I'm going to take advantage of something that Ben and I came across one day. 766 was a recently created office code in a number 1 ESS out of the World Trade Center central office. When we went to a 766 payphone and tried dialing our own area code 212 in front of a New York City number, we found that the 766 ESS was sending everything to Gotham Tandem. Now that's actually unusual because Gotham is not used for outgoing calls from Lower Manhattan. It is used for calls into Lower Manhattan. The only place that uses Gotham to call the entire city is New Jersey. But now, thanks to the fact that this particular ESS sent 212 plus to Gotham, we could hear and record the entire city going through Gotham on a local connection. Had we had to do that from New Jersey, it would have been over carrier, there would have been noise, and we would have lost a lot of details. But here, you have a next-door central office on a clear short wire trunk. Well, it just sounds great. So, how does Gotham get around town? First of all, whenever Gotham has direct trunks to any panel or crossbar office, be it in its own sector or somewhere else in the city, it uses revertive pulsing, just the regular way. Here's Gotham using a direct trunk to the M09 panel in the Bronx East 150th Street building.
The number you have reached is not in service. In area code 212, please check the number and dial again. The number you have reached is not in service. In area code 212.
That was the operator just hitting the release key. I tell you, the Manhattan Intercept operators are the worst. Panel revertive pulsing, of course, has that panel rhythm to it. But when calling a number 1 crossbar, the revertive pulsing has a steady pulse rate. Here's a call to the first crossbar 1 in New York, President 2 in Troy Avenue, Brooklyn. That's loud. Let me turn it down. When calling number 5 crossbar, the revertive pulsing is faster. That's because of the incoming RP senders in the number 5 itself. Gotham does have direct trunks to almost every regular switching entity in the city. For its own Gotham sector, it has full groups, i.e. enough trunks to handle the peak load without having to alternate route. The same thing goes for Staten Island, because Gotham used to be a major gateway to Staten Island. Many of the trunks to Staten Island end offices are on N3 family carrier. Here's a supervision test in Staten Island's only #1 crossbar to make that obvious. Okay, so Gotham Tandem likes to RP. Actually, it doesn't have any choice when going into a regular end office. That's also true of Brooklyn Tandem. But unlike Brooklyn Tandem, which is only used to call Brooklyn end offices, Gotham has to call the whole city. And so when it needs to use another tandem to reach a regular end office, it does something which is unique for New York City. It uses revertive pulsing, which is really something that panel offices are more likely to do. When a crossbar tandem that can MF out wants to use another crossbar tandem to get to a panel office, that will typically sound like this. But when Gotham, which cannot MF out, wants to do the same thing, it typically sounds like this. There's a whole lot of RPing going on there. What makes this possible is a layer of the network which I'm calling the revertive layer. This layer consists of some crossbar tandems, all of which were installed in the 1947 to 1954 period. Each of these crossbar tandems can be communicated to using revertive pulsing to convey the number that is being called. The revertive layer is able to cover 4 boroughs, sorry Staten Island, all of the Westchester County area that's local from New York City, as well as all of Nassau County except the Suffolk border zones. To reach Nassau County, the revertive layer offers Jamaica Tandem,
21236.
located in Queens but dedicated entirely to calling Nassau County, which is in a different area code. But hey, in revertive pulse land, there aren't any area codes. To reach Queens, you can use Richmond Hill, tandems 1 and 2.
21237. 21238.
This pair of tandems also appears in the sector tandem layer, but as a sector tandem, it doesn't cover the entirety of Queens. The northeastern Queens part is covered by Queens Tandem, and then the Brooklyn-Queens border area goes into Bushwick. But for the revertive layer, Richmond Hill covers all of Queens. To reach Brooklyn, the revertive layer offers Brooklyn Tandem. Now in the sector tandem layer, there are 2 parts of Brooklyn that Brooklyn Tandem is not used to reach. One is the Kings sector, the other is the Bushwick sector. But as a member of the revertive layer, Brooklyn Tandem either covers the entirety of Brooklyn or covers it all minus 3 central offices in the Bushwick area. We can't tell for sure because, as usual, the tandem profile contradicts itself. For the Manhattan and Bronx territory, you have York Tandems 1 and 2,
recording 21218,
and Amsterdam Tandem 1,
recording 21219.
not to be confused with Amsterdam Tandem 2, which shares the same recording ID,
Recording 21219.
but is used for Centrex CU. York and Amsterdam have a very sloppy coverage pattern, which among the 3 covers the entirety of Manhattan and the Bronx. And then, for the entirety of southern Westchester County, the part that's local to New York City, you have Mount Vernon Tandem 1, 9145. Now, Gotham Tandem used to be able to use all of these, but when area codes came in the early 60s, Gotham lost the ability to call Nassau County and Westchester County for only one silly reason, and that is that Gotham Tandem only has 8-digit register senders. So as soon as there were any office codes duplicated in New York City and one of those suburban areas, Gotham couldn't call the suburban areas anymore. It had to be 212 only. But that's okay, and it uses the revertive layer as I've described. Here's a call to a Brooklyn panel, Esplanade 7, that Gotham either doesn't have direct trunks to, or has direct trunks to, but the trunks are busy. It goes through Brooklyn Tandem. Now just to review something, when the revertive pulses are coming from a panel, the speed keeps changing. Right. From a crossbar 1, it's a steady rate or speed, whatever you want to call it. And then from crossbar 5, it's also steady but usually faster. Okay, so having heard those examples, what do you think is going on here? That's from the upcoming call, which is to the BE6 panel, 71st Street, Brooklyn. Okay, so let's analyze this, as Ben and I did the first time we heard it. First of all, our destination office is a panel, but the pulsing that we hear most predominantly sounds like number 1 crossbar. Listen. That is the pulse rate of number 1 crossbar, but also it's more digits than usual. You have the normal 5-digit sequence here, but before it, there are 2 other revertive digits. And after that, there's a long pause, and then finally Gotham cuts through and the panel rings. Here's the whole pulsing segment again. So it's 2 digits, then 5, then a pause, and cut through and ring. One more thing, if we listen carefully during that pause, I'll turn up that part. Yes, during that pause you can hear panel revertive pulsing in the background. So what we're hearing here is actually 2 revertive pulse conversations. The first, consisting of 2 digits and then 5, is the conversation between Gotham Tandem and Brooklyn Tandem. It sounds like number 1 crossbar because Brooklyn Tandem is a crossbar tandem, which is a modified version of number 1 crossbar. The second revertive pulse conversation, extra tinny and in the background, is the conversation between Brooklyn Tandem and the panel we're calling. And since we're calling a panel, it does, timing-wise, sound like panel pulsing. In this 7-digit revertive pulse protocol, we stay on Gotham's register sender until Brooklyn Tandem gives the final flash indicating that the call has completed. And when a panel or crossbar 1 office uses Brooklyn Tandem or any of the others in this same way, you sit on the originating register sender until the tandem gives the final flash. Now, since it's a 7-digit revertive pulse sequence, you might think it's the 7-digit number, but no, it's the same panel-compatible numerical code for the last 5 digits and then the 2 digits before. That's designed to simulate the office selector in a panel. So Gotham is speaking panel's numerical language when it uses this protocol. However, since those 2 digits are being given to a crossbar tandem, they don't actually select the outgoing trunk group as would happen in a panel. They just specify which outgoing trunk group is desired. Now, there are panels and number 1 crossbars all over the city using this protocol. The crossbar ones in Westchester and Nassau counties also use it. But with those, you can't hear both revertive pulse conversations because the originating sender or register sender in panels and crossbar ones doesn't let you hear all those details. Gotham Tandem is the only place in the city where you can actually hear this protocol being used and you can hear everything that's going on. Now let's let Gotham call a crossbar 1 via Brooklyn Tandem. Here's a number 1 crossbar in 77th Street, Brooklyn, going through Gotham to Brooklyn Tandem to the crossbar 1.
Alpha 165, and I'm calling.
836-9950.
The correct number for the business office is 680-9950. This is a recording. The number is 680-9950. If you are not calling the telephone company business office, please consult your directory and dial again.
Now, here are 2 calls to 591, a crossbar 5 in the North Jamaica building, same building as Queen's Tandem. But Gotham can't use Queen's Tandem because Queen's Tandem only receives MF. Gotham uses the revertive layer, so even an entity that is in the Queen's Tandem building goes through Richmond Hill.
21237. 21238.
One of the two. On the first of these, you can hear the second revertive pulse conversation pretty clearly, although it's still tinny, of course, but you can tell that it's number 5 crossbar even before you hear that familiar busy signal. And now here's a rare treat. Gotham rerouting because it hit a snag. The next call is to Wadsworth 3, a panel in West 176th Street, Manhattan. Gotham starts to put the call through on a direct trunk, but something goes wrong. Maybe the trunk flashes, but in any case, that triggers Gotham to reroute it through Amsterdam Tandem 1.
Recording 21219.
And so first you'll hear loud panel pulsing, then you'll hear Gotham rerouting using that same 7-digit revertive pulse protocol to put it through Amsterdam. To break down the pulsing action on that last call, first, Gotham begins to communicate normally with the Wadsworth 3 panel. Oops, hit a glitch. So, goodbye Wadsworth, hello Amsterdam. Wadsworth 3, please. And now here's the last 4 digits in the panel format. And now we hear the tail end of the conversation between Amsterdam and Wadsworth 3. So that's how Gotham gets around most of the city. However, you knew there was a however, right? However, starting in the 1960s, there was a whole other bunch of stuff that Gotham had to deal with. This.
If you are in the company, hello?
That's right, Centrex CU, private branch exchanges that can be called into from the outside. Now in Manhattan, there are 5 crossbar tandems that specialize in Centrex CU. The older ones are VZ Tandem 2,
2127.
Amsterdam Tandem 2,
Recording 21219.
and 10th Avenue Tandem 1.
21211.
These 3 really like to receive PCI, which Gotham can send. So Gotham goes directly to those. Now there are 2 newer ones, Lexington
21244.
and East 97th Street Tandem 4.
Recording 21248.
These 2 do not like to receive PCI, but they will for Gotham, as well as for Suburban and Midtown. And so, for these, there's no problem either. Gotham just uses PCI. Here's a call to the office code 960, which is out of East 97th Street, Tandem 4. Gotham sends the 7-digit number via PCI to East 97th Street, which then dial pulses 3 digits into the step Centrex. So for Manhattan Centrex CU, Gotham is just fine. The challenge comes in the outer boroughs, because you have the 390 code in Staten Island Tandem, you got 3 office codes in Bushwick, you got 780 in Kings, 830 and 990 in Queens, 430 and 920 in Tremont, and all of these tandems that I've just mentioned can only receive MF. And so they created something called Pulse Conversion Tandem. Pulse Conversion Tandem is used to receive PCI from Gotham, Suburban, Interzone, and City tandems and convert it to MF so as to be able to communicate with those outer borough sector tandems that handle the Centrex. Here's Gotham calling 240, which is one of the Centrex codes in Bushwick. Gotham sends PCI to Pulse Conversion Tandem, which MFs to Bushwick. Another place where Gotham has to use pulse conversion tandem is for the Twining 5 office code. There were so many Long Island businesses that wanted to have a New York City number in addition to their regular number that the phone company established Twining 5. This is a special code that goes to Hempstead Tandem, which then looks at the rest of the number and sorts out where it needs to go. Since Hempstead Tandems 1 and 2 can only receive MF, Gotham sends Twining 5 to Pulse Conversion Tandem, which sends it to Hempstead over N3 carrier, and then Hempstead sorts it out. Here is a typical Twining 5 call. Now here's the thing. Everything you just heard Gotham Tandem do is something that it did before the fire and will be able to do after the fire, except for those last 2 phone calls which used Pulse Conversion Tandem. The question that Ben and I have at this point is, what are they going to do about Pulse Conversion Tandem? Because Pulse Conversion Tandem is a subsection of Interzone, and Interzone is not coming back. So Gotham's going to come back and it'll be able to handle everything it did before except the pulse conversion calls. It's going to have to do something different. And at this point, Ben and I don't know what they're going to come up with. What they did end up coming up with was so much more complex than he and I would have thought that we never expected it. The answer to what they came up with to allow Gotham Tandem to reach the entire city, including tandems that have to receive MF, is in the Bronx, episode 01B. In the next program, for better or worse, I'm going to be getting into the New York City tandem routing system. The fire did have an impact on outgoing calls from panel central offices, but only from home phones. It's really kind of interesting, actually, and I'll be showing you what it was like to try to dial out from a home phone on the morning of the fire, February 27th. That's next.